Hi everyone, I'm Lynn Woodland. Welcome to the Miracles course. I'm the author of two different books about miracles. The first one is called Holding a Butterfly, an Experiment in Miracle Making, which as soon as readers open the book, draws you into a real-time experiment in making miracles so that as you read, you see miracles start to happen in your life. And my second book, The Breakthrough Point, A Spiritual Activist's Guide to Thriving in a Modern World, continues the same miracle experiment. It's a very experiential book where you're having an experience of miracles as you read the book. And the second book also takes a very deep dive into looking at our times, why they're so volatile, why they're so crazy and unprecedented, why we're still experiencing politics not as usual. The whole world seems to be going nuts. It really puts all that in the context of humanity's evolutionary leap. So you can start to understand it in more positive terms, not in Pollyanna terms. It's not saying that, it's all going to end right. It really is saying we all have to participate, but there's good news. So I hope you check those out. Now this course, the Miracles course, is a year-long program of every week a little different slant of personal and spiritual development. Every lesson is a complete experience, so you can drop in at any point in the curriculum without feeling like you're coming in the middle of something. And at the same time, each class builds upon the last in the same way each season leads into another. In fact, the content of the course uses the 4 seasons as a template for the whole of our human journey. So it really does cover a very wide range of personal and spiritual experience with the goal of not just attaining a particular goal or two in life, but of really living a miraculous life. So with this course, there is no beginning or end. You can join any time. Whenever you start, that's the beginning of your course. And because there isn't a beginning or end, it's kind of like the seasons. I mean, who gets tired of the seasons, right? People often do this course over and over again. And just as we change constantly with every season of the Miracles course, there will be a different experience with the same lessons. So July, this is the last week in July where we've been given a whole month dedicated to the theme of prosperity. Prosperity because July, it's summer, it's when the natural world is overflowing, overproducing. Greenery, flowers, fruit, vegetables, it's just a cornucopia. So I like to give attention to the spiritual principles of abundance. And this week, for this week, I want you to have some money in hand. If you don't have, a checkbook, many of us don't anymore, where you can write a check or some cash, that you can take out some cash, then write an amount down on paper. So everybody take a moment to do that. Get yourself some money out. Money, money, money. I see people walking around, looking for your money. Pull out your purse, pull out your wallet. Well, I want to start tonight with 2 different quotes. Now, the first one comes from a most esoteric handbook of spiritual philosophy called A Course in Miracles, which some of you may have heard of. And this quote says, "Having had and given, then the world asserts that you have lost what you possess. The truth maintains that giving will increase what you possess. End of quote. So in other words, that quote means if you want something, you first need to give. Now the second quote goes like this, and this is from a very different source. Whenever you feel short or in need, give what you want first, and it will come back in buckets. That's from the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So I went from a very lofty spiritual text to a book that was very much written in the context of pragmatic financial advice. But they're basically saying the same thing. Whatever we want to receive in life, we need to be willing to give really unconditionally. And in the early 80s, when I was the director of the nonprofit Baltimore Center for Attitudinal Healing, attitudinal healing centers were better known back then in the 80s. They were modeled after the original center created by Jerry Jampolsky, author of then a few bestsellers. One was Love is Letting Go of Fear. And what Jampolsky did is he boiled down some of the basic principles of A Course in Miracles into 12 really easy, digestible principles. Like A Course in Miracles is 3 volumes like that thick. Attitudinal healing is like a little teeny bunch of principles like that thick. And then what he did is he started a center first for children and then also for adults who were seriously ill, who had cancer and other life-threatening diagnoses. He found that like a lot of kids who were expected to die were just practicing these principles of attitudinal healing, that said things like love is letting go of fear, healing is letting go of fear, just practice being in the moment and loving unconditionally, and that's all that healing is. And he found that his kids were living. They were going into remission very unexpectedly. I got very excited by that. He was on all the national TV shows back then. And he mentored us and in Baltimore and kind of connected us with some resources, people he'd trained in DC. And we started a center in Baltimore. I was director. I had a group of people who helped with the founding of it. And so we were going along fine for a bit. And then, the center just reached this financial crisis point where our funds just weren't stretching to meet our needs. And as director, of course, I was head of fundraising and just agonized with the burden of that and the responsibility of that. And I just worked harder and harder to make ends meet. I whined to God about the unfairness of it all. And I'm like, God, I am doing your bidding. Why are you not paying me? And since my salary was not getting paid very reliably, I just went into some real dark, panicky places and frequently lost sleep worrying. Now, in my clearer moments, I just did a lot of meditating. I just could go from panic in the middle of the night to meditating and really, listening for guidance and talking to God and asking, why is this happening? What is the lesson of it? And, as God will, when I really talk to God, God responds. God is very, very polite that way, I've found. And my reflections really led me face to face with this enormous and previously overlooked double standard I held regarding money. Because while I thought I believed in the principles of attitudinal healing, which of course is based in A Course in Miracles, and teach that everything is love and giving and receiving are the same, I acted as though these principles didn't apply to, the real world of finances. And the more I meditated, the more my inner guidance made it clear that I had to clean up this rift. I had to clean up this divide between my spiritual beliefs that were up here and how I lived my life, which is sometimes way down here, kind of in the fear chakra. You can't even see it, it's too far down out of the screen. Where you feel fear in the middle of the night. That's where I was living my life to a large degree back then. And my guidance said, if I want to create more of something, I need to start giving it away unconditionally. And I just really struggled with the practicality of this in my situation. I mean, how can I give away what already feels scarce? But the more I resisted, and the louder and pushier my inner guidance became, it's like my inner guidance became as pushy as my fear level was. They became equally loud. So one got loud, the other got louder. But basically, I couldn't not listen to my inner guidance because I asked for it, and it just was screaming at me. And it was very clear. It told me to eliminate all fees for the center's professional trainings and workshops, which at the time provided the organization's only revenue, because we didn't ask for any fees for volunteer-provided services. Like anyone with an illness could just come to any of our group services or be matched with a volunteer kind of buddy program. So, the training programs for volunteers and for professionals, those had fees attached, and that was how we paid our bills. And so we just asked people to give whatever they wanted as a gift of love instead of as a mandatory fee. And my inner guidance reassured me that this would be okay, that the center would actually prosper this way, and the givers would prosper as well. Now, I was also directed to tithe 10% of my personal income to whatever I felt to be my own personal source of highest inspiration. And I was told to tithe 10% of the center's income as well. There'd be money that would flow into the center, all go into the center's bank account. I was told to take 10% of that off the top. And then, what came to me out of what, was left from the center, what paid my salary, went into my bank account. I was told to give 10% of that. So this guidance, it just became more and more disturbing. I was kind of freaked out by it. And I came up with a whole host of rational reasons why it wouldn't work. And, yet there was something about it. I mean, the thing that felt right is that when I thought of it, I had this feeling of peace. The thought of doing it felt good. Then I'd feel scared, but when I think of it, I just feel kind of excited. I'd get a yes. I might feel scared too, but I got that inner And so I presented this to the center's board of directors, and they just reflected to me all of my real world fears, but on steroids. I mean, this was a group of really sweet older ladies, the sweet little ladies who just like to read A Course in Miracles together and talk about spiritual things and do good works. And they were like screaming their heads off at me. There was rage in this meeting. And interestingly, I can think of an awful lot of times that I've seen people in that kind of rage over money. If you think about it, divorces, divvying up estates, the things that trigger people, money, I think, is at the top of the list. So, even this group of really sweet older women who just want to do good work in the world, it just triggered their rage. And I think they probably thought I'd gone insane. And I mean, it somehow broke. I don't know how we got from the rage to the end result where they went along with it. They said, go ahead. But I know somewhere in that process, as one woman was just screaming, the dog of the household, we were meeting at some rich lady's house in her really lovely living room, and her really sweet little, perfectly groomed dog came over to a woman who was screaming, lifted his leg and peed right on her. It was like, he just came over like, I think I have to put this fire out right now. I mean, sometimes God really has a sense of humor. Somehow, that helped, I guess. So I was able to put this plan into action. And, I would say there are a lot of venues that do self-determined donation offerings now. Back in the 80s, there really weren't. It was a kind of an unusual thing. And I was met with a lot of those people who signed up for our program, a lot of their real world skepticism. People wondered, is this a scam? What's the catch? But interestingly, what ultimately unfolded from implementing this really was pretty miraculous. Not only did a lot of people who signed up for these programs give generously for classes even when they didn't have to, the number of people signed up doubled immediately, instantly. The number of people doubled. And while some attendees gave less than the fee we had been charging, others just gave a lot more. So the per person average remained about what we had been charging as a fee, only we had twice as many people. So right there, the center's income doubled right away. And what I found that as I gave away my own money in the form of tithes, almost immediately I started receiving large and very unexpected gifts of money. Now, no one in my whole adult life, not even my parents, I think I might have, I'm not sure if I was even in my 30s at that point. My parents didn't even support me from the time I was like 17, 18. They came to me for money, in fact. No one gave me money. And all of a sudden, I'd be just in the, Attitudinal Healing Center office opening the mail, and here'd be this big check, just people wanting to support the work. And the financial gifts I gave frequently opened doors of new opportunities and linked me with important people who kind of helped me and led to new endeavors. And as the center gave tithing gifts, it too started receiving money like crazy. So, and as the individuals in the programs, as they stretched past their money fears in the process of giving to the center for their classes, because I would tell people not to give what they should and not to give what they're afraid they can't. To just go into a little bit of a meditative state, let go of their fears of what they can't give, let go of their guilt and shame of, I've got to give at least this much, or what's she going to think of me? Kind of let go of both of those places, just go into a meditative state, kind of ask God, ask your inner guidance to tell you what the right amount is. And people would, and that's what I suggest even doing now. For this class, this is how I've been offering most of my work ever since the 80s, even my 5-day intensive workshops, where, if I didn't make money on a 5-day intensive workshop, I would lose the shirt off my back. I'd be in deep trouble. It always worked out. I never know what people were going to give. It always worked. And people would tell these very interesting stories of how, they were afraid about the money process, but they'd go into this little meditation. And I remember people sharing things like, I fell asleep during the meditation, but the amount woke me up because it was so big. And then they'd share, and then a few days later, I got this unexpected job where I was offered that amount per hour. That happened literally. Somebody fell asleep. The amount woke her up because it was so big. A few days later, she got offered a hand modeling job that offered that exact amount per hour, and it was, a number of hours. People would have these weird experiences of miracles happening around whatever they were guided to give. Even though a lot of people, as I said, were initially uncomfortable. And even, uncomfortable, sometimes they got a lower amount. I remember there was one woman way back when AIDS was a lot more lethal than it is today. And she did a 5-day intensive, and it was like about her third one. She had a lot of money put aside to give at the end. Her inner guidance said, give 0. And she had to kind of fight with herself around that. But she finally listened to it and didn't give what she had set aside. That week, a friend of hers who was really seriously ill with AIDS and also in financial dire straits just reached out to her for help. And she had all this money put away that she was going to give to the workshop, that she was able to give to him. And, it was a big blessing. And she came back a week later for our little reunion session. And she shared this. And, I was able to share that, we had actually made more per person on that 5-day intensive than I ever had. So did I mind seeing that she gave nothing? I mean, it didn't take anything away from me. There was this interesting, just divine order that happened when we ask God to, what to do with our money, and we kind of get that inner yes. So I've seen these really interesting money miracles happen for people over the years when we just let go and let God manage our finances a little more. Like there was a man once who had no job and almost didn't attend a 5-day workshop with me at all because he felt so bad about not having anything to give. And at the end, his inner guidance directed him to give a much larger amount that he could immediately pay as an unemployed person. So he promised he would pay, in tiny little increments over a long period of time. However, 2 days later, he was offered a job at a much higher salary than he'd expected, and he was able to pay his promised gift off very, very quickly. Just story after story like this. So I've heard from people again and again and again that when we allow money to stop being an issue, it just stops being an issue. And this principle of giving, it really works on every level. Whatever feels most scarce is invariably what we most need to give. Did you hear that? Whatever feels most scarce, whatever we just want the most, is what we most need to give and what we need to give unconditionally. I mean, for example, I was talking about how since I had this diagnosis of cancer about 6, 7 months ago, I really withdrew from my healing ministry, feeling, that I'm just not quite up to it. And I feel like that was good advice to pull back a bit just for self-care. However, this last week, my inner guidance when I'm reflecting on what do I need, what do I need to really pursue my path of health in the highest way? And my guidance was, teach what you need to learn. And my guidance was about updating my healing ministry so that it can operate without me there live. So I invite people to go and check out my healing ministry online at lynnwoodland.com. It offers a new meditation that you can listen to if you're needing to heal. It offers a format to help you organize your friends into your own healing circle community. So, it was a way I think that was really good guidance, that I need to be willing to give unconditionally what I'm wanting to receive. So whatever it is, if it's love, it's easy to debate with our inner voice around this, to promise to give more as soon as we have more, as in, I'll start tithing just as soon as I get out of debt, or I'll start loving more just as soon as that other person does, It's, however, at these times of greatest poverty, really, that we need to let go and open our hearts and trust, to give, to trust that we do live in an abundant universe, that anything we could possibly want is available without limit, and give it unconditionally in a way that starts prosperity flowing back to us. In the many years since my own inner aha about the power of giving, I've heard this principle emphasized by more spiritual teachers of prosperity than I can count. When I first had the idea, it was kind of new to me. The only thing I could find on it was, more of the First Nations rituals around giving circles, and other indigenous communities that just aren't very materialistic, aren't very, very centered around how much they own and measure their prosperity by how much they give away. I thought, okay, I ran into that after I got the idea. I thought, I got this idea. This is my idea. Then I ran into indigenous practices, and then I started reading lots of other books on prosperity principles. Some way more ancient, older than I am, even though I'm pretty ancient. So I realized it was not my own personal idea. It's kind of a universal principle, and I wasn't the first to have it. But it was nice to start doing all that research and get some validation for what I was guided to do, because I certainly did not get it from the board of directors of that attitudinal healing center, except for that one little dog who lifted his leg. I do still, I'm still grateful to him. And many years later, I have to say, when the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad came out, I was so delighted to see this basically spiritual principle emphasized there, because that is really a learn how to read a balance sheet and invest wisely approach to prosperity. It's really a pretty good read, I thought. It's by Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Check it out. I thought it was pretty good. And it basically explains that the financially struggling middle and working classes wait to give money until they have some to spare, which is an attitude that virtually guarantees that they seldom will. And now Rich Dad understands the power of giving, especially when money is scarce, because this is exactly what will open the flow of new opportunities. But I also want to address here, because we're not just doing the spiritual work, we're doing some of the emotional and personal work as well. I think those things really need to be integrated for us to truly achieve mastery, to experience miraculous living, not just the occasional woohoo, miraculous result. I mean, lots of people have, I've had people write to me and say, I got all the little stuff on my vision board, like the little serendipities, the little synchronicities. I see butterflies everywhere. But how do I get the big stuff? Like the thing I've been stuck around all of my life. Those are the things that require the personal level of integration with the spiritual level of open consciousness. So I want to address how this spiritual principle of unconditional giving fits with lessons we might have learned in therapy and self-help work about codependency, the harm of enabling, when is unconditional giving enabling in an unproductive way, and the importance of personal boundaries. What if we feel empty and it seems like we give and give and give, but never receive back? How does all this fit with that? Is it sometimes necessary to stop giving? Well, my take on that is a no, but a qualified no. Stopping the flow of giving just across the board stops the flow of receiving. So whenever we feel tired from giving, we need to look at how we direct the focus of our giving and how we may be blocking ourselves from receiving. Because when we find ourselves measuring how much we give against how much is given to us, we keep coming up short. We need to measure instead how much we give to others against how much we give to ourselves. And if the scales are still way out of balance and we're still falling short, it's time to direct our flow of attention to ourselves. This is when it's time to look at what we give readily to others but not to ourselves. Be it giving of our time, our material things, our nurturing, our respect, our acceptance, our love, all those things we might give but not to ourselves. And it's time to start giving those things freely to ourselves. Because giving doesn't mean sacrifice. And loving others doesn't mean loving others instead of ourselves. So as we balance the scales by focusing a bit less on, outward giving and more on giving inward, we tend to find some of our outer directed activity naturally falling away. Even though we haven't stopped giving or loving. The experience of love is love. If you think of all the things you say that word to, from the most mundane thing like, oh, I love that TV show, or I love that ice cream flavor, or I love that, or I love God. From the most sublime to the most, shallow and superficial, if we think of what triggers that word, there's at least this initial feeling. It's kind of an opening. There's maybe a feeling of being taken out of ourselves a bit, and a feeling of expansiveness. Now, if something isn't really serving ourselves, if we project our love somewhere and it's not really what we need, that experience very quickly turns to numbness, becomes more of an addictive process. But that feeling of love, at least initially, is that And if we focus more on aiming that toward ourselves, like self-love, like I accept myself just the way I am, I forgive myself, I'm going to give myself some time now. I'm going to do things for myself instead of for other people. That is still loving other people, especially as we focus attention on ourselves instead of like, the hell with you, you're not getting my time. Like, no, you just like, meh, meh, meh. The more we're focused on making the other person feel bad, that isn't self-love. That's not what I mean. What I mean is where we really do focus in on loving ourselves. It might be through meditation, through exercises, through support groups, through therapy, through, your spiritual readings, through, however you do it. There's many, many ways of loving yourself. They have nothing to do with trying to make other people feel bad. But as you do give yourself that attention, some of, like the scales start to balance. You're just naturally giving less attention to, all the other people. If you're giving more time to yourself, so-and-so gets less of it. So it's important to emphasize here the essence of giving. The only true gift we can give, really, is unconditional love. And this requires no action at all. When we feel burned out from giving too much, it means we've done the physical demonstrations of giving without the inner experience. Without the love underneath it, our actions aren't a true gift. And just as true prosperity that I talked about last couple of weeks, has nothing to do with actual amounts of money, so true giving has nothing to do with external action. In fact, sometimes it's necessary to do less in order to do more, in order to give more. So if you've lost the feeling of unconditional love with someone in your life, yet you're still doing a lot for them, and maybe you're feeling a little resentful, feeling burned out, feeling that your efforts aren't really doing much for you or the other person, that's often a good sign of enabling. They may serve to enable the other person's weaknesses or give you some illusion of control through an imbalance of energy exchange. Sometimes that's why we will maintain that kind of relationship where, if you're always the giver, it's another person who's the one down receiver. The giving person never has to be too vulnerable, and there's a sense of connecting without vulnerability. And it's not a healthy kind of connecting. It doesn't really serve each of you in the long run. And it simply affirms in your own mind your unworthiness to receive as much as you give. And when you step back far enough from the physical doing for someone so that you can actually feel love again. And sometimes, ask yourself, if you're feeling burned out in a relationship and you're doing a lot of giving, ask yourself, how far would you have to step back to get in touch with love again? And with some people, that means severing contact altogether. Because unconditional love doesn't require having any kind of personal relationship. You can unconditionally love the person who abused you and have no contact with them whatsoever. And once you can experience unconditional love for them, they have no hold on you whatsoever. They have no power over you. Love is doing nothing but supporting you, serving you at that point. And there's no imbalance in that relationship. And when we get back to a place of love, when we step back far enough so that we're loving again, those who are ready to grow in love with us will suddenly have the space to reciprocate in a more mutually beneficial way. And those who are in our lives to just use us will fade away. They'll just disappear. They won't be getting what they want anymore. So opening the flow of giving means opening to the flow of receiving as well, or we do invariably wind up burned out. And this is no easy task for many of us who have deeply ingrained habits of refusing the many gifts that come our way. Consequently, our next lesson in August. Now, August is an important month. Like June, July, May, June, and July are all about manifesting. Boom, 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 prosperity, call it in, call it in. August has a lot to do with receiving and opening to bliss. And in some ways, it might not seem as quote unquote important as the manifesting. You know, you might think, oh, I got the manifesting part. I can skip all the receiving part. But receiving is actually one of the most important pieces of manifesting work. Because if we're not open to receive, all that good that we've called in, just, we repel it. Sometimes it'll show up and we'll disappear it as quickly as we've manifested it. I've done that. I've seen it happen. So that's what August is going to be about. So I really invite you to, check out those lessons. But for now, I want to give particular attention to money. Giving money. When money is given in unconditional love, it becomes something sacred and transforming. Because money is energy, or rather, it's an abstraction, it's a symbol of an energy. Consequently, it really becomes whatever we think it is. And when we let it go freely with conscious intent, we send a powerful ripple of healing into the world, and we become magnetic to money coming back to us. So I want to go over some suggestions for the handling and the releasing of money. Now, the first two suggestions I'm going to make are specific to the handling of cash, which many of us don't even use anymore. And if you've switched almost entirely to plastic or auto transfers, a lot of us don't even use checks anymore. Talk to anyone under 30, it's like, checking account? What's that? Consider maybe just for a little while keeping a little bit more cash in your wallet as an exercise in sending energy into the world, because cash literally touches many people as it passes hand to hand. And if the abstraction of plastic has helped you go into debt, as it can, then switching back to cash, especially when handling it in the way I'm going to suggest, that might resolve the problem. Now, the first suggestion is to never wad your cash up like it's a piece of trash, little teeny wads. Since the 1980s, 40 years, I've been taking voluntary offerings for my group programs. And it's given me a lot of opportunity to observe how people hand over money. And when I'm in a group, I will use envelopes, and the giving process will be fairly anonymous. And unless people are giving a check, I don't even know who gave what. I'll get some cash in an envelope. I don't know who gave it. And even so, often there are these gifts of money that have come to me as these little wadded up pieces of trash that feel so tightly crumpled. They look more suited for, the trash can than my bank deposit. In fact, there have been years when I've been involved with helping to sort Sunday collections after church gatherings. And I've noticed the same thing in the offering baskets. And not surprisingly, these are usually small bills rather than 20s or higher, even 10s. The wadded up ones are often ones. And while I can't say for sure what goes through the minds of the givers, just receiving these offerings, it just feels, kind of vaguely unpleasant. Just the extra effort it takes to uncrinkle these $1 bills and do something with them, it would just always leave me with the feeling of having to work harder for less. And it would always make me wonder, is this how the giver feels as well about money? The bigger bills, 20s, 50s, $100 bills, they would tend to be released with a lot more ease and pride even. And I remember a minister colleague of mine used to say, while offerings were being taken in his service, don't leave claw marks. And whenever I would get these, sad little scrunched up bills, they would seem, I would really get the, literal manifestation of claw marks of the reluctant givers. You can almost see their fingernails on the bills. And, if everything we give comes back to us amplified, I can only imagine the hard work for tiny incomes these folks must perpetuate in their lives. So this is a long way around saying, treat your money with respect, not just in the abstract, but the actual bills as well. They are manifestations of an energy that you want to become a respectful, conscious steward of. And, just as I have different experiences handling different people's money, so do the receivers of your money receive a bit of the emotional energy that you attach to it. If you give money like it's trash, you will wind up attracting money the same way, which means either you'll repel it because, who wants trash? Or it'll feel like something kind of nasty, nasty having it, like these little bills always felt like something nasty, like that. And if you want to transform your money into something precious, into a creative substance, to be used wisely and productively and to amplify, begin to handle it as something precious. Would you fold and crumple a sacred document or stuff it in your wallet or in your pocket, like in a disorganized mess? If all those little bills are like something sacred, if they, are just full of spiritual energy, if you really saw them that way, would you crumple them up and kind of throw them on your dresser? Maybe not. So look at everything about how you hold, house, and release money this way. And see what it's telling you about your relationship to it. Even consider buying a new wallet if you need one, and organize your bills in your wallet so you know what you have. And, start becoming and thinking of yourself as a steward of this sacred energy that passes through you. And it's your job to add a vibration to it, which comes to my next suggestion, which is to make money sacred before giving it. See what you can add to them before you pass them on. And this would be to any check you write, as you pay your credit card bill, anything as you are managing your expenses, your bills, anything that is about the outflow of money, really add a healing vibration to it. It's your choice to add claw marks or something much different, a much higher vibration. And you do this simply in the way you look at your money, in the way you touch it, in the way you write a check or think about money as you hand over a credit card. So imagine imbuing your money with the energy of unconditional love, healing, sacredness, power, and well-being before you give it, and release it that way. And it doesn't mean just releasing it this way when you pay a clerk at your favorite gift store or your favorite restaurant, where there's some personal connection, while you send out the same resentful claw marks, to your credit card or utility bill companies. Giving unconditional love is a powerful act of healing that starts with the giver, and every time we give money this way, it doesn't matter to whom or whether or not it seems worthy. It heals our relationship to money and attracts more to us. Most of us, we go unconscious around money. I said, it easily triggers anger and fear in people. And so we often unconsciously imbue money with that energy of fear and resentment. And because money is made to flow between people, we become connected that way, connected in fear, in survival fears, and it maintains the collective mindset of scarcity. If you think of money as an energy that just connects us one to the other, and we're all kind of stuck in like this unconscious mindset that there's not enough, and we live in poverty, and we're kind of scared as we give our money away that we're not going to have enough. Is it any wonder at the troubles that we have around money? Follow the money to find the root of any scandalous, evil thing that's happening is a truism, because it is kind of at the bottom of all those things that scare us and that we do in aggression, to defend our place of fear. So if we can turn that around and add a conscious intention of healing as we put money out in the world, it may have more impact than you'll ever know, because one healing impulse cancels out, 10 fear impulses. A love impulse can be that powerful. Now, another suggestion with money involves the practice of tithing. And tithing is the practice of giving away a 10% portion of income, always to one's highest source of inspiration. It's best known as a financial obligation to support one's church. Yet, when tithing is done in the spirit of unconditional love, it really is a highly effective prosperity practice for the giver. And it was created as much for that as for the beneficiary. And I've given money away from decades, as I've shared tonight, sometimes in the form of regular tithing, and sometimes in big lumps given randomly when I feel inspired. In fact, shortly before starting this online miracles course, which was maybe, 16, 17, maybe 17, even 18 years ago maybe now, my life was in kind of a doldrums period. And in just a week's time, my weekly support group had gone from having about 40 regular members, and this was an in-person group, I wasn't doing everything online back then, to sometimes only 4 or 5. It was this huge drop. And the group had been going on for decades, and I'd seen fluctuations, but never one quite so extreme. I didn't know why it happened. I didn't know why my work felt stalled. I explored a number of new projects, but none of them seemed to take or get off the ground. And I was also kind of dissatisfied with other things in my life. You know, my apartment was kind of cramped. I felt stuck there since I co-owned the building. It was kind of convenient and inexpensive. And to top it off, life as a landlord was becoming an endless hassle, with tenants not paying their rent, with repairs needed to the property. So the size of my classes and my income steadily dwindling, I was just feeling increasingly cranky with life. And giving money away was the last thing I felt like doing. And it wasn't until I saw the spiritual community where I was then one of the ministers go through the same financial doldrums that I was. And they were toying with the idea of starting an organizational tithing practice. I got inspired to take action myself. Now, organizational tithing was a really bold move for this community. People were discussing it, but not really implementing it, not really willing to go for it. People were really struggling with their, as I know, real world fears. And as I saw in the organization the reflection of my own struggle with money, I just got this very clear inner guidance that I was to support the effort with my own money, and it was also going to help me with my own doldrums. So I began with a $1,000 gift to the organization, to the church. And then I committed to a monthly tithe, starting with an amount that wasn't 10% of what I made, but 10% of what I wanted my income to become. And the effects were immediate. 3 days after giving away the $1,000, I had 3 times as many people show up for my weekly group than usual. And all my classes and workshops were suddenly bigger. And my income jumped so quickly that I made back my $1,000 and then some in no time. And a lot more on top of that. And about a month or so later, I got the inspiration to create this online course. And I was thinking it would take me years to get it created and get it up and running. But it turned out to start up just a few months later with a whole class of students who wanted it now, which meant I was writing classes only a couple of weeks before I was teaching them live. And for any of you who've ever seen the written materials, they're extensive. So I was basically writing one of those lessons a week. I have never been that busy in my whole life. But there were so many exciting changes in my life. Money was flowing. I had plenty of people attending my programs. My property business partner and I wound up selling our smallest property for nearly 3 times what we had paid for it several years earlier, and buying the large duplex that I wound up moving into. So within 6 months of giving my $1,000 gift, I had more money, students, a new career, a new home, more reliable tenants, and more satisfaction with my life. It wasn't that much longer that I met my husband. I mean, like, boom. And having experimented a lot over the years with giving money away, that experience that I had is really typical. Anytime I've given money in a way that to me feels bold and a bit of a stretch, a little scary, but I get an inner yes about it, life gets way interesting. The money I give comes back multiplied, along with a leap in growth and opportunities and quality of life on just about every level. So I'm sharing so much of my own experience with tithing in the hopes that you may catch some of the excitement of it, because I want to emphasize that tithing is not a practice that can be taken up as an exchange or a discipline. It's not transactional. When it's done in a transactional way, as in, God, here I'll pay you, but you've got to pay me back, it just becomes one more bill to pay, and it doesn't have really any abundant result for the giver. Tithing needs to be from the heart and inspired from within. If it feels exciting, but still too frightening, you might start the way I did like 40 years ago, when I didn't quite trust that it would work. What I did is I opened a separate bank account for my tithing money, and I let it accumulate in the bank while I decided where to give it. And that really gave me time to make sure I could live without it. Because I had, maybe 4 or 5 months of seeing how putting this money away and just committing it just grew my income, and I felt great giving it, and it was easy peasy. And choosing where and how to give is crucial to making tithing a spiritual practice as well, rather than just a bill to pay. Traditionally, tithing is meant to be a gift up to your source of highest inspiration, rather than down to where you see greater need. Because the idea is that giving up serves many, while giving down just one, and sometimes not even that one, if the individual isn't empowered by the gift to create more for themselves. And this isn't to say that it's never appropriate to give down. It just isn't a tithe. I've given tithes to organizations that inspire me. Sometimes I've given a tithe to private individuals who are living their life in a way that I find so inspiring. I just cut them a check for $1,000, like boom. That is how I want to live my life. Here, thank you for inspiring me. And something always happens for me then. Like something always happens. Something always opens. So I don't base my tithe on who needs it most, but on who inspires me most. I listen to my heart and to my enthusiasm to find where I'd find the joy in giving, because it is the joy of giving, not the act, that turns a gift of money into a spiritual gift. And then it always comes back to the giver. It's kind of paradoxical, because the minute we start to give with the intention of being paid back, even by God, the gift is no longer unconditional, and it doesn't have that magnetic effect. When we give simply for the joy of it, we're not thinking about what's coming back, and that's precisely when it does. It also doesn't matter how worthy you judge the receiver to be. If your whole heart is in the gift, it's going to send a ripple of healing into the world, and it will come back to you in kind. No matter what the recipient does with your gift, it will come back. A former minister colleague of mine told a great story of how he began tithing many years ago. He was really down and out, and he wound up giving away literally his last few dollars to a spiritual ministry. And almost immediately manifested more. And out of this windfall, he gave an even bigger amount to the ministry. And even more money came back to him. And one financial opening led to another bigger one, and each time he gave more to the ministry. And in a short amount of time, he landed a very high-paying corporate position. And you know, did well ever since, and now he's happily retired in a great big house on a beautiful lake and doing very well. Thank you very much. Um, and he would tell this to, um, well, the church where we were both ministers, which was a fairly politically correct, new thought type group of listeners. And they were getting all excited about the wonders of tithing. And then he would share kind of the kicker to his story that the ministry he was giving all his money to was a TV ministry. It was Jim and Tammy Faye Bakker's. And at this point in the telling, there was always a big groan from the crowd, like, "Oh no, not them! You mean the ministry that got taken down for being like a big scam and blah, 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 blah." As though all the money given was a big waste. The real lesson in this story, though, is that a gift given in unconditional love always profits the giver. I believe gifts of money that are truly given in unconditional love help restore some vibrational balance. And the highest good of all, in ways that we may never see clearly, starts to come out in the end. I think it just helps to restore the universal balance. Even if we give to the quote-unquote wrong sources a gift of money with the absolute intention of unconditional love and healing, that might be the last dime that brings, an evil empire down. It might just start restoring the balance in ways we will never know. There's a lot of vibrational things out there we just never quite see. But in the end, if this spiritual practice feels exciting to you, I would experiment with it. Give some money away to a group or an individual. Find some place that is a real source of inspiration. Wait, till you really get a yes. I always know. I always get a big oh yeah, that group or that person, yes, yes, yes. Because, they're the person currently I'm just getting a lot of juice from. And then give what you can give unconditionally and joyfully without any expectations of receiving anything back. And what I find is that when I get an inner yes, I will, sometimes afterward start to close down in fear, like, can I really do that? As I sit with it, the yes will come back. I find that what I get initially, if I don't get that inner yes, I don't go forth. If I get that inner this feels so right, even if I feel fear afterward, I go for it because I know the initial thing is typically from me, my inner guidance. And that's when it always comes back to me. Always comes back, often tenfold. So the last but not least of my suggestions for tonight involves being open to receive when gifts come back to you. Because as we give generously and unconditionally, we will attract blessings back. So I'm going to stop there. I know this is getting a little bit long, but I have a meditation that I want to do with us. So do look at the written materials. There's a bit more to go through. But I want to do this meditation with your money in hand. Like I said, if you don't have money, write down an amount on paper that you're willing to commit to something. And I'm not, the aspirational $20 gazillion that in a perfect world you would like to have from the lottery ticket you just bought. No, this is an amount of money you have that you are willing to commit to something. not knowing what amount of money. So just close your eyes and relax. Take some deep, full breaths. Just fill your abdomen as well as your chest. Exhale just as fully. If any of you have gotten like scrunched up and tense from just even thinking about giving away money, just actually even, shake it out of your arms a little bit. We give money with our hands, literally. You might want to just give your hands a good shake, 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 shake. And then, with every breath, just imagine your highest good to be as plentiful and accessible as the air you're breathing. And affirm that you are as deserving of this abundance as you are deserving of breath. That the universe is plentiful. That just as there's plenty of air for you to breathe, the very energy around you is a field of untapped potential. It's the divine source of God just waiting to give to you. So breathe it in and imagine that your having plenty doesn't make there be any less for others, any more than your breathing robs others of their breath. And imagine that letting go of what's no longer serving you, as well as sharing your abundance with others, is safe. It's as safe and it's as easy as breathing out. And as you breathe in deeply and exhale completely, feel the interrelatedness of giving and receiving, of letting go and taking in, of ending and beginning, each giving rise to the other. And now imagine everyone in the Miracles course joining together at the spiritual level and rising together in prosperity. And because space and time are permeable to consciousness, we can all be together with those who are present on this webinar and with those who aren't, with those from the past and from those in the future who will participate in this exercise. And our joined intentions simply being imaginative enough to think this, to imagine this all together on behalf of one another. This is all it takes to make us all stronger, to create literally a force field of healing, of abundance, of prosperity that lifts us all. And if you feel any lack of faith in your own right to an abundant, joyous, healthy life, imagine there are many others now who have faith in you and are helping to lift you out of scarcity. Imagine that your love does the same for them. And know that as we hold this prayer for each other's highest good, we access the amplifying effect of unconditional love. So there's no limit to what we can create. And understand that deep peace and unconditional love allow us to draw freely from the divine source. And that as any one of us learns the secret, we just naturally, effortlessly raise others up with us. So as we open to our spirit-given abundance, we actually help each other to do the same. So as you breathe, just let a feeling of deep peace surround money and anything in your life that has felt scarce. Anything you feared you would never have enough of, whether it's time or love or health or happiness or love or whatever it is, you name it. Surround all of these areas of your life with peace, feeling that in this moment there's nothing lacking, that that's the truth. There's nothing to worry about. There's nothing in conflict or in struggle. All that you need is here now, and you just relax and feel at peace and give thanks. And when you can feel this, give attention to the money in your hand. And let the experience of peace flow into the material substance and abstraction that is money. Imagine that you're turning it into sacred energy. And this isn't a difficult or mysterious process. Simply intend it. That's the power of consciousness. Simply be imaginative enough to hold the intention, and it becomes so. And when it feels done, open your eyes again with another deep breath. And your assignment is to give this money away in whatever manner feels most heartfelt. You can give it to your source of highest inspiration. You can give it away to a person you love, who you want to prosper unconditionally. Someone who inspires you. You might want to add money to it, or let it grow over time and give it away when it's larger. Find some form of heartfelt, unconditional giving that really, just blows your skirt up, that gets you excited, that sparks that inner yes. And if you don't know what it is yet, then commit it. Hold on to it, commit it. Don't let it go back into just the bank account, the wallet, whatever. Commit that amount of money to be determined, to where you're going to give it in deepest love. Now, other assignments this week are to give special care and consciousness to the holding and the releasing of cash. Make all your money transactions sacred, the way we just talked about. And another thing that you might want to do, and this isn't about money, it's about letting go of what's precious, is find something of yours that's precious to you and give it away as an unconditional gift, as a gift of love. You might want to pick something that's a stretch to release, and yet it feels really exciting and joyful to give rather than painful. And pick someone or somewhere to give this gift, in a way that's going to leave you feeling happy and full. Now, if you want a really interesting group exercise, this is a great alternative to holiday giving, is to invite a group to get together and instruct everybody to take something of theirs that's precious, and without even knowing where it's going to go, wrap it up as a gift, write a little note about how it's precious to you, what it means to you, and give it, kind of back to spirit. Then when you all get together, somebody is designated to give all the gifts away randomly, with the message that whatever you get back is a message from Spirit about some blessing that's now coming into your life. Really cool little exercise. Great thing to do around the holidays. So folks, I know we've gone way over our usual time. So my dears, that's it for tonight. Do check out very soon to come my new healing ministry and the healing meditation. Anytime you've got something going on, you want to do a meditation for yourself, or if you have someone in your life who's ill and you'd like to just organize some of their family, loved ones, friends, to be a support community for them, the meditation is for that as well, and there will be some information on just how to organize a group, how to get started in doing that. So until I see you again, everybody, I love and bless you. Namaste.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Lynn. We'll be keeping you in my thoughts and prayers and sending you healing light, and hope all goes well for you.
Thank you. Thank you. I receive that. Bye, guys.